Welcome to the Wife Stories YouTube channel. New video every day, and don't forget to subscribe. Here we go.
I've been wanting to do this for so long. Her voice. Low, trembling, neither confident nor uncertain. Somewhere in the middle, like a strange hybrid of confession and craving. Those words slam against the inside of my skull, and even now, after everything, they haven't stopped echoing. I can still feel them vibrating in my temples, throbbing in sync with my pulse. I remember the hush that followed, the soft rustle of sheets, the slow exhale that ended in a gasp. For a while, that single sentence was all I could hear in my mind, playing in loops. I wish I could say I forgot the rest, how her tone shifted, how her breathing changed, but I can't. Sometimes, in the quiet of my bedroom when I'm alone, I still hear it. Sometimes I think it's more real than the sound of my own heartbeat. And now, months later, I'm sitting here, in our living room. My living room, watching the aftermath of that one line tear apart the last remains of my marriage. I think about how it all started. I'm not talking about the day I first saw the incriminating sign or the moment I suspected. I'm talking about a single day that felt off, about that intangible sense of distance creeping into her voice, about subtle changes in her eyes that I tried to rationalize away. But the real beginning came far earlier than I allowed myself to see. Sometimes, you don't realize you're on a sinking ship until the water is at your waist, and by then, it's too late to prevent the flood. You can only decide whether to swim or drown. Tonight, though, there's no escaping it. I can't run from the stares. The disappointed, disgusted, pitying stares. Rebecca's father is seated on an armchair to my left, fists clenched as if words aren't enough to hold back his fury. Her mother, perched on the edge of the couch, stares at the floor. I see the tension in her shoulders that remind me so much of my wife's. My sister-in-law is crying softly, trying to hide her face behind trembling hands. And in the corner, leaning against the wall, there's the old uncle who never liked me, never even pretended to. Now he's stone-faced, arms folded over his chest, offering silent judgment. Rebecca, my wife, sits on the couch, at the very edge of it, as if she's trying not to sink into the cushions, as if one false move could tip her over. Her eyes are locked on the floor, and her lips pressed together in a tight line. She hasn't spoken since I walked in, phone in hand, and hit play. The voice message, "You looked amazing together." That's all it said. A woman's voice, breathless and amused, like she'd just witnessed some thrilling secret. Then a click, the faint click of a door lock or maybe a phone snapping shut. And that was it. A snippet so innocuous to an untrained ear, but catastrophic in what it implied. Not just a casual fling, but a deeper intimacy, a hidden life. Evidence that there was a they, not just a him and her. I didn't scream, didn't curse. I stood in the center of the room, phone held out, making sure every single one of them heard that woman's breathy endorsement of my wife's involvement with her lover. Then silence, the kind that feels like a vacuum sucking the air out of the room. In that hush, the tension weighed heavier than any words I could say. So I started talking, my voice low, rasping, but controlled. I explained the entire timeline, how it was him, Alex, the head coach, her so-called mentor, a man I'd vaguely known, maybe even respected from a distance, because of his achievements in sports. A man who saw a challenge and decided to seize it. And she jumped, willingly, headlong into his arms. I watch her father's knuckles whiten. He's old-fashioned. He believes that once his daughter marries, she stands by that husband's side with no compromise. His reaction is violent in its silence. Her mother can't even look me in the eye. She spent decades cultivating an image of the perfect household, the perfect daughters. And now everything cracks. The sister whimpers, "Becky, how could you?" She tries to stifle the sob in her sleeve, but it escapes anyway. And Rebecca, still staring at the floor, says nothing. Because the DNA test put the final nail in the coffin. because the results were irreversible proof of a betrayal far more profound than a momentary indiscretion. I remain composed, externally, at least. Inside, I feel a distant roar, like an engine or a factory meltdown. Some unstoppable force pressing against my rib cage. I say it, softly. You didn't just betray a man. You betrayed everyone who believed you, who loved you. Then I pause, letting the words sink in, letting the weight of the silence fill the space in between heartbeats. She remains silent, but her shoulders tremble once. That slight motion might have been a sob or just a desperate attempt to stay upright. I don't know, and at this point, I'm beyond trying to interpret her body language. I need them all to understand. It's bigger than me, bigger than a broken vow. It's a fundamental lie that exploded in our faces and shattered an entire framework of trust. I stand up. The legs of the chair scrape across the floor, and I register how father-in-law flinches at the sound. Rebecca's mother dabs at her eyes with a tissue, though she tries to hide it. The old uncle remains stoic, disapproving. And in a voice that is more final than any gavel, I conclude, I've said what I came to say. That's when Rebecca finally makes a noise, a gasp, half plea, half shock. But I already turned away, stepping toward the door. My final words linger behind me, echoing off the walls. Let the empty room be your conversation partner. And I leave. Outside, the sky is heavy with clouds. The air smells like rain, but the storm hasn't broken yet. It's that tense hush before a downpour, when the wind all but disappears, leaving a stagnant kind of stillness. In some ways, it matches what I feel inside. Everything hushed, seconds away from a deluge. I get into my car, start the engine, and immediately my phone lights up with messages. I ignore them. I guess now is when I should say how the pain started. The day I found out, or the moment that voice message came. But it began long before. The day I truly started to suspect was at a small company event. She came to pick me up from the office. Nothing out of the ordinary. She was wearing that sky blue dress I always told her I loved. There was a tiny coffee stain near the hem, which she tried to hide behind her purse. We got into the car, started driving home. She was quiet, too quiet. Usually, she'd be telling me about her day, about the new project, or some colleague gossip. But that day, she stared at the road ahead, shoulders tense, as if anticipating an accident that never came. It wasn't the silence that alarmed me. It was the way she avoided my questions, the abrupt changes of subject. Eventually, I let it go, not wanting to pry. I trusted her. We got home. She sank into the couch, said she had a headache. I offered some water, a gentle shoulder rub, but I could feel her flinch at my touch. It felt like she'd put up an invisible barrier. I told myself it was stress. She'd been juggling a lot at work. People change, stress accumulates. I never suspected it was someone else's hands she craved, someone else's voice she wanted to hear. Weeks passed, and little cracks appeared in our day-to-day routines. We fought over small things. The laundry not folded, groceries not bought, an offhand comment about some minor expense. I took it as normal marital friction, shrugged it off. I'd tell myself, all couples have rough patches. Meanwhile, she withdrew further. Sometimes, I'd wake in the middle of the night and find her side of the bed empty. She'd be in the living room, scrolling through her phone or staring at nothing. If I approached, she'd plaster on a polite smile and say, "Couldn't sleep, that's all." So I'd nod. Accept it. A trusting fool. Only later did I see that in her phone were messages to him, calls at odd hours, pictures I never would have guessed she was sharing, personal glimpses into her life that she never shared with me. When I eventually confronted her, it wasn't with a direct question. It was more like a muted remark about how she'd been distant, how we weren't connecting. She responded with a forced hug, a guilty kiss on the cheek, and an apology for being so out of it. She assured me we'd be fine. That's the night I started hearing the echoes of a question in my mind. Who is she, really? but I tried to bury it. Then, a few months ago, I found a small receipt tucked under the passenger seat of her car. A bar receipt from some lounge across town. The date and time matched a Saturday I recalled she was supposedly at a friend's place. She told me she was going over to comfort an old classmate going through a messy breakup. I didn't question it because I wanted to believe her. But that slip of paper read, 2 cocktails, $28. She doesn't drink cocktails. She'd always said they were too sweet, too heavy, gave her migraines. So who was the second cocktail for? I remember confronting her that evening. Hey, I found this in your car. Did you go out with someone? My voice was light, casual. But inside, my heart pounded. She froze for a moment, then gave a half smile. Oh, I was with Michelle, and we decided to get a quick drink on the way home. Guess I forgot to mention it. She shrugged, her eyes darting away. Then she bent down to sort some mail, effectively shutting down the conversation. I almost pressed further, but she asked me about dinner, some random question that felt off but distracted me enough to let it go. To this day, I hate myself for being so easily appeased. It got worse when I found that text message on her phone. She'd left it charging on the kitchen counter and stepped outside. A notification popped up, reading something like, "Missing your scent, can't wait to taste you again." My gut knotted. My throat clenched. I stared at that screen for a good few seconds, my mind refusing to make sense of the words. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was some spam or a friend's twisted joke, but my logic collapsed under the weight of reality. I didn't even check who it was from. I just knew I was reading something not meant for me to see. My fingers trembling, I locked the phone and set it down exactly as I found it. Then I walked to the window and looked outside, trying to steady my breathing before she came back in. I remember a hot flush creeping up my neck, the sensation you get when you realize your entire worldview is about to shift. That night I didn't confront her. I told myself I needed more than a single text, so I waited, observing, collecting small pieces of a puzzle I didn't want to solve. A final blow came when I discovered a single earring in her car. It wasn't hers. It was too gaudy, something that belonged to someone else. But that made no sense. Why would another woman's earring be in the passenger seat? That's when I realized. Maybe it was a token left behind by the friend of her friend, or maybe it had nothing to do with her. Rationalizations once again. But in my gut, I felt certain. She was meeting him there, or giving someone a ride. My mind churned with horrifying possibilities. And then it happened. The open confrontation. She came home late, hair damp, a flush on her face, as though she'd just stepped out of a shower. But it wasn't her usual shampoo scent. It smelled faintly masculine. I asked her directly, "Where were you?" She hesitated, rummaging in her purse for her phone. "Went to the gym. Took a shower," she said, the words stumbling out. "They have that new spa in the women's locker room. Sorry I didn't let you know. Lost track of time." The lie was too transparent, but she clung to it. We had a shouting match that ended with her in tears, me pacing around the kitchen, fists pressed against my temples. But the weird thing is, after that explosive moment, we both pretended to calm down. We didn't speak about it for days, maybe weeks, as though a mutual silent agreement formed. Keep the peace, keep the secrets at bay. I guess part of me was terrified. I had built my entire adulthood around the belief that we were a strong couple, that we'd fight the odds together. We'd planned a future, possibly kids, a home improvement or two, maybe a relocation if I got that bigger promotion. Confronting her meant confronting the end of every plan, every shared dream. So I stayed in denial, quietly searching for proof. She must have sensed it, because she became more careful, more distant. Eventually, I discovered something far worse than I imagined. The possibility that her betrayal included something permanent, another man's child. That suspicion planted itself when I accidentally overheard her speaking on the phone in hushed, frantic tones, talking about a doctor's appointment. Weeks, not sure, and I need to be certain. My mind jumped to 1,000 conclusions. When I asked her about it, she quickly changed the subject to my parents' upcoming visit, as though reminding me of other obligations. I didn't push, but inside, a flame of dread grew. And from that point forward, I fell into a twisted spiral of suspicions, eventually culminating in that DNA test. It was to confirm paternity, my paternity, and the results didn't match. I was not the father of the child she was carrying. That's when I realized she had no intention of telling me about the pregnancy at all. Another piece of the puzzle I was never meant to see. Everything else, from that moment on, felt like a countdown to the final confrontation. I had the data in my hand, a sealed envelope that read, "Not consistent with alleged father." Some lines are more savage than curses. I didn't speak to her for 2 days. She must have known something was up, because she avoided me too. We orbited the same home, never crossing paths except for a few fleeting glances in the hallway or the kitchen. I'd sleep on the couch, clinging insomnia. She'd stay locked in the bedroom for hours. The silence in our house was louder than any argument. I think on some level, we both knew the end was near. Then, ironically, her parents called. They were passing through town, wanted to drop by for a family dinner. She said sure, maybe this was the opportunity to mend fences. Meanwhile, I saw it as the final stage. If this was going to end, it would end publicly, with all illusions shattered before everyone who had a stake in this marriage. In my mind, that was the only way. I realized it wasn't mere revenge I sought. I wanted them, her parents, her sister, that old uncle, everyone, to see who she had become and what she had done. I coordinated it like a silent operation, letting them arrive, letting them settle in the living room, offering small talk while Rebecca hovered in the background, nerves practically radiating off her. And then, just as her father was asking me about my job, I got up calmly, reached for my phone, and said, "Actually, there's something you all need to know." That's when I pressed play on the voice note. A quick message, a few words from an unknown woman's voice. "You looked amazing together." Then the final click. At first, they looked confused. But as I started explaining, you could see horror dawn on their faces. Rebecca stared at the carpet, not uttering a word. I kept speaking in that gentle, measured tone, describing Alex, the training sessions, the suspicious phone calls, the day I found that text. I laid out every fact, culminating in the truth about the unborn child. Her father's anger was ferocious, but contained. Her mother's tears started as soon as she realized what was happening. The sister crumbled in her seat, covering her face. The uncle, that old man who never liked me, simply folded his arms and glowered at everyone. But he said nothing. Maybe he was stunned, or maybe he'd suspected something all along. And all the while, Rebecca stayed silent. She didn't deny it, didn't try to argue or defend herself. She just sat there as though awaiting a verdict. But the verdict was already cast. Finally, I told her, in a voice that cracked once, "You didn't just betray a man. You betrayed every single person who cared about you." My throat felt raw. I wasn't yelling, but it took everything I had not to break down right there. She made a small sound, a keening noise, but no words came out. That's when I stood, told them I was leaving, because there was nothing left to discuss. The evidence was incontrovertible. The illusions were gone. It was time for me to walk out. She let out that sudden, panicked cry when I reached for the door. But the only words I left behind were, "You've called your own sentence." I didn't slam the door, exactly. But the finality of it echoed through the hallway. That's how I ended up here, in my car, exhaling a breath I didn't know I was holding. The night is quiet, that thick stillness before a storm. Finally, the sky cracks open, and rain starts to fall in heavy droplets on the windshield. I let it. I flick on the wipers, and for a moment, I'm mesmerized by the rhythmic back and forth motion. Another message buzzes on my phone. Probably my sister-in-law, or maybe one of Rebecca's parents, wanting to beg me for calm, for a conversation, Or maybe it's Alex himself, though I doubt it. Men like him rarely bother with such trifles unless it concerns their ego. I ignore it either way. I start the engine and drive. My mind drifts back to a day, years ago, when Rebecca and I were newly married. We took a road trip out to the Grand Canyon. It was spontaneous, a last-minute decision. We packed a cooler with sandwiches, threw some spare clothes in a bag, and hopped in the car. The entire drive, we laughed at everything. Silly jokes, roadside billboards, random observations. I remember how she rested her feet up on the dashboard, wearing my oversized hoodie, how the sunrise lit her face in soft pinks and oranges as we pulled into a gas station for coffee. It was the simplest happiness, a memory so genuine, it makes my chest ache to think about it now. She looked at me with so much love in her eyes that day. Or maybe it was the excitement of youth and adventure. Either way, it felt pure. Somewhere between that day and this night, something broke in her. Or perhaps it was always broken, and I just never saw it. I replay that flashback in my mind as I steer through the drizzle. The roads are slick, headlights from oncoming cars streaking across the windshield. I can't help but wonder if it was something I did, or something she lacked, or if it's just the nature of certain people to roam, to crave new excitement. Alex, the coach, the charismatic extrovert, the shining star of his sports world. Maybe she was attracted to that energy. Maybe she needed the thrill of being wanted in a way I couldn't provide. Or maybe it was simpler. She just fell for someone else. And that was that. None of these questions really matter now. I suppose closure isn't guaranteed. I keep driving, no particular destination in mind, as the rain intensifies. Lightning flashes in the distance, illuminating the horizon. I feel numb, a sort of hollow acceptance. I recall how my voice had cracked once, how I forced it down and kept talking. There's a certain power in not losing control, even when your world is collapsing. I wonder if that's how my father felt when my mother left us years ago. That's a memory I rarely visit, but now it surfaces, unbidden. My father, red-eyed but resolute, telling me, "Some people will love you only so long as it suits them. That doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means you're not a priority to them." I hated him for saying it at the time, but now I see the bitter truth. The phone buzzes again. I pull over at the side of the road, letting the storm rage outside. An old oak stands near the ditch, its branches thrashing in the wind. I unlock my phone. A text from my father-in-law. Shorter than expected. "Where are you?" She's hysterical. "We need to talk." Another from my sister-in-law. "Michael, please come back." She's a mess. This is all too sudden. We can sort it out. Each message hits me with a dull ache. But there's no sorting it out. Some things can't be undone with apologies or rational explanations. You can't unring a bell. You can't unsee proof of betrayal. I turn off my phone. That's it. If I do anything else, I'll be sucked back into that living room, that tension. Right now, I need to breathe. I watch the rain hammer the windshield, watch the wipers push the water aside again and again. It's almost hypnotic. My thoughts slip back into the memory of how I found Alex's name. Typed out in texts, hidden in her phone under an alias, some random female name, ironically. She'd masked his contact with a woman's name. Then I think of how she once told me she felt unfulfilled, that she wanted more passion in her life. I'd brushed it off as a midlife worry, something about turning 35 and feeling stuck. I told her we could go on more date nights, maybe plan a fancy vacation. She nodded. But she had that distant look in her eyes, the kind that said, "You can't fix this." Maybe that's when I lost her. Maybe that's when she was already in his arms. A pair of headlights approach in the opposite lane, flickering briefly before disappearing around a bend. I realize I've been parked here for close to 10 minutes, lost in my own mind. I rejoin the road, pulling back into the slow lane, letting the car drift forward. My soul feels as dark as the sky overhead, but strangely calm, as though I've accepted the storm, The temperature outside is dropping. The AC fogs up the glass. I flip the vent controls to clear it. I can't help noticing how cold I feel inside. Maybe that's the lesson. Cold is an emotion, too. A shield, a layer of frost that sets in when warmth is gone. I won't lie. Tears threaten at the corners of my eyes, but I swallow them down. I remind myself, I can mourn later. Right now, I just need to keep moving. Eventually, I pull into a deserted parking lot of a closed grocery store. The overhead lights flicker, half of them out. The asphalt gleams under the downpour. I turn off the engine. My reflection stares back at me from the rearview mirror, haggard, a day's worth of stubble, eyes that look older than they should. My mind drifts to the final confrontation with Alex, which happened just a week ago. He showed up at our house unannounced when she wasn't home. I guess he wanted to talk man to man, though his posture suggested a fight might have been on the menu if it came to that. He had this self-assured grin that made me want to break his jaw. But I didn't. Instead, I asked him, why? He shrugged, said something about how he and Rebecca had a connection, that it started innocently, blossomed into more. Told me he couldn't help falling for her. The way he said it, you'd think it was a normal, everyday occurrence to bed another man's wife. I wanted to strangle him. But I just stood there, fists clenched at my sides, heart pounding in my ears. At some point, he smirked. Look, man, if she wasn't happy with you, that's not really my fault. That line, that single line almost did it. My vision blurred with rage. I've never been a violent person, but in that instant, I wanted to tear him apart. I advanced, and he actually took a step back, the bravado slipping. He must have realized I was serious, but at the last second, I stopped myself. Because, ironically, he wasn't worth it. If I laid a hand on him, I'd be stooping to his level or maybe even lower. So I let him leave, let him walk out with that forced cocky swagger, as though he'd won something. In truth, all he'd won was a future built on lies, and the child, presumably, if he even wants that. Not my concern anymore. After that fiasco, I spent days and a daze. Sometimes I'd picture the two of them together, her hands in his hair, that hushed voice saying, I attack davno kotela edo stilat. I jolt awake at 3 a.m. with sweat on my brow, the bed feeling too big and too empty. That's when I started planning the living room confrontation. I knew I had to do it in front of her family. The father who believed we had the perfect marriage. The mother who adored me like a son. The sister who always looked up to us as a model couple. Even that uncle, though he'd never liked me. He deserved to know the truth too. In some twisted sense, I wanted them all to witness the truth of her betrayal. Because for so long, everyone had believed in the fantasy. I guess that was my form of retribution. Honesty unveiled. Now that it's done, I just feel numb. I can't rewind time, can't resurrect the love we had. I can't unlearn the bitterness. So I stare at the reflection of the grocery store sign, the neon flickering in the puddles, and wonder what my next step is. There's nowhere to go, really. I rented a small motel for the night on the outskirts of town, planning this meltdown well in advance. The room has peeling wallpaper, a flickering overhead light. It suits my mood perfectly. I figure I'll stay there until I figure out my next move. Maybe tomorrow I'll call a lawyer, start dividing assets. Maybe I'll vanish for a while. See if I can find some version of peace out in the desert. The only certainty is that the life I knew is gone. I turn on the radio for some white noise, something to fill the silence. A scratchy old country song plays, lyrics about heartbreak and whiskey. I smirk without humor. Typical. After a while, I flick it off. The storm continues outside, thunder rumbling overhead, rattling the metal roof of the car. Through the water-streaked glass, I watch a lone stray dog dart between parked cars, searching for shelter. It looks half-starved. My heart twists unexpectedly. I dig around for anything I might have to feed it. A leftover energy bar. Maybe. Nothing. By the time I roll down the window, the dog is gone. Disappeared into the night. Everything feels that way now. Uncertain and dark. I think about that final line I left them with. Let the empty room be your conversation partner. I said it so quietly, with more bite than a scream ever could muster. She made that small, wounded sound, but I didn't turn back. I guess that's what the older folks mean when they say heartbreak can turn your heart to ice. Because at that moment, I felt no pity, no remorse, just a cold acceptance. You might say I welcomed it. I let out a slow, shaky exhale and start the car again. Headlights illuminate the deserted lot, the rain slanting sideways in the wind now. I drive to the motel, about 10 miles out, passing shuttered shops and darkened neighborhoods. Everyone's home, asleep or maybe lying awake in their own private tragedies. I park near the flickering neon sign that reads vacancy, push open the rusted door of the front office. The bored clerk behind a plastic window hands me the key. Room 7. He doesn't even bother with small talk. I guess my expression says it all. Inside the room, the stench of stale cigarettes and damp carpet greets me. I toss my jacket onto the single chair by the window, noticing a splotch of water from the leak in the ceiling. There's a battered dresser with a TV older than I am, and a bed that sags in the middle. I guess that's home for tonight. I shut the door, turn the deadbolt. Silence is deafening here, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. I let the darkness settle in, then flick on the bedside lamp. It casts a sickly yellow glow. That's when it hits me. Really hits me. The magnitude of what's happened, of what I've done, of what she's done. The numbness recedes a bit, replaced by a stabbing ache in my chest, like the swirl of emotions that never got a chance to fully surface. I sit on the bed, stare at the wall. I might have stayed that way for minutes or hours. It's hard to keep track. My father's words echo again. Maybe that's the closest thing to closure I'll ever get. Some loves aren't meant to last. Or maybe they are, but we sabotage them. I feel no tears. It's a cold sorrow, a deep dryness in my throat, an ache behind my eyes, a heaviness in my limbs. This is heartbreak, adult style, after illusions are stripped away. No neat Hollywood resolution or triumphant redemption. Just the bare, unvarnished truth that we lost each other. Or maybe we never had each other the way I thought. Eventually, I lie down, not even bothering to get under the sheets. I stare at the stained ceiling, listening to the wind howl. Sleep drifts in and out, haunting me with half-formed nightmares. Every time my eyelids droop, I see her face, the moment of betrayal. I hear her whispered confession, or maybe that woman's voice from the recording. You looked amazing together. Then that tiny click. I see the father's clenched fists, the mother's tears, the sister's meltdown. I see Rebecca's eyes pinned to the floor, refusing to meet my gaze. I keep replaying that image until exhaustion finally claims me, pulling me under. The nightmares are no worse than reality. Morning comes with a watery sun peeking through the torn curtains. The storm has passed, leaving the world washed out and damp. I stare at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My eyes are ringed with dark circles, my hair disheveled. I run a hand over my stubble, debating whether to shave. The sink sputters a bit before a weak stream of water emerges. I cup my hands under it, splash my face. The cold sting jolts me awake. I check my phone. Missed calls, voice messages. One from my sister-in-law, voice trembling as she begs me to come back, to talk. Another from my father-in-law, a terse request for me to call him. None from Rebecca. Maybe she's too ashamed or too scared. Or maybe she ran straight to Alex. I shake my head, trying to push those thoughts aside. I decide to take a walk down the cracked sidewalk outside the motel. The air is still cool, puddles reflecting the gray sky. My breath condenses in the morning chill. A convenience store lies at the far edge of the lot, so I head there for coffee. The fluorescent lights inside are harsh, flickering in places. An old tune plays over a tinny speaker. The bored teenager at the register barely looks up. I fill a paper cup with cheap brew, the smell both welcoming and stale. I pay, stepping back outside as a light drizzle begins anew. The coffee warms my hands, but I still feel that cold knot inside my chest. Sipping, I wonder what my next step is. Do I call a lawyer today? Do I gather my belongings from the house? I have the right. It's still my home. But something in me dreads walking into those rooms again, seeing the ghost of what used to be my life. Then there's my job, my responsibilities. This fiasco exploded in the middle of a crucial deadline at work. I'll have to contact HR, request some personal leave. In the rational part of my brain, I'm forming a list of tasks, a plan to handle the logistics of a crumbling marriage. Meanwhile, my heart is in pieces, scattered across these damp asphalt shards of memory. I lean against a lamppost, watch a truck rumble past on the highway. For a second, I imagine driving off somewhere far, Utah, maybe, or up to the mountains, just vanish. But I'm not one for running away. If anything, I have to clean up the wreckage. I have to face Rebecca eventually, if only to finalize the separation and talk about what happens next. She's pregnant, carrying a child that isn't mine. That's the hardest blow of them all. I never realized how deeply I wanted a child until it was denied me this way. By that point, though, I was already numb. Lost in thought, I barely notice my phone vibrating again. I check. An unknown number. I answer on instinct. It's him, Alex. There's a pause, a raspy breath on the other end. "Michael," he says, voice subdued. "We need to talk." I can't believe his audacity. I almost hang up immediately, but a strange curiosity compels me to ask. About what? A sigh from his end. "Rebecca. She's not well. She locked herself in the bathroom last night after you left. She's in a really bad place. Her family can't reach her. Could you at least talk to her?" His tone is different from that smug bravado I remember. I hear genuine concern, or maybe guilt. I can't tell. For a moment, I say nothing. The drizzle intensifies, droplets splashing on my jacket. My breath plumes in the cold air. Finally, I ask, "Why do you care?" "You got what you wanted." My voice is steady, quiet, carrying an edge. He exhales. "It's not that simple. I'm worried, okay. I don't think she wants to talk to me. Or her parents. She keeps asking for you." Anger flares inside me. She lost the right to ask for me. She made a choice. My voice cracks slightly on the last word. Alex falls silent. Then, "I get it. But please, man, just do it for her. She's in trouble." The hypocrisy astounds me. This is the man who set fire to my life, and now he's pleading with me to quell the flames. I end the call without another word, heart pounding. That phone call rattles me more than I care to admit. If she's truly in crisis, do I owe her anything? Morally, possibly as a human being. But after what she's done, does she deserve my concern, my presence? A torrent of conflicting emotions surges. Part of me still loves the memory of who she was. Part of me despises who she's become. And another part is simply exhausted by the entire ordeal. I walk back to my motel room, ignoring the puddles that soak through my shoes. The coffee has turned lukewarm, almost bitter. I toss it in a trash can outside my door. Once inside, I fling my phone onto the bed, start pacing. 1,000 thoughts swirl. Should I go see her, or should I let her family handle it? Should I call the father, see if she's truly in danger? My better judgment says not to get pulled back in, but a small nagging voice in my head reminds me that I'm not a monster. If she's in genuine distress, I can't just shrug and walk away. That's not who I am, no matter how badly she hurt me. In a near daze, I grab the phone again, dialing the sister's number. She picks up immediately, voice hoarse from crying. "Michael?" I can hear the relief in her tone. "Thank God. She's locked in the guest bathroom. Keeps sobbing, saying she's sorry. Dad's furious. and Mom is inconsolable. We don't know what to do. I rub my forehead, feeling a headache forming. I'm not the one to fix this, I say, voice calm. She made her choice. You want me to come over so she can apologize, so we can pretend everything's fine. My bitterness seeps through. The sister sniffles. No, not to fix it. Just, she won't talk to anyone else. She keeps saying your name. I'm worried about her mental state. I close my eyes, struggling with anger, pity, and an unexpected flicker of compassion. All right, I mutter. Give me an hour. She sighs with relief. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. I don't reply before hanging up. For a long minute, I just stand there, phone still in my hand, staring at the worn carpet. Driving back toward the house feels surreal, like stepping onto a battlefield after the war has ended. The storm has eased into a cold drizzle, the sky a blanket of gray. I park in the driveway, noticing the father-in-law's car, the mother's sit-in, and the old uncle's truck. Possibly the entire family is still here, trying to handle the fallout. My stomach churns as I approach the front door, half expecting a confrontation. But the door is unlocked, and the living room is empty. A scene of last night's chaos remains, scattered tissues, an overturned cup on the table, leftover coffee stains on the rug. I can sense the tension in the air. The sister emerges from the hallway, eyes puffy. She motions for me to follow. She's in there, she whispers, pointing to the guest bathroom. The door closes. The father stands further down the hallway, arms crossed, scowl etched into his face. The mother is seated on a chair, hands trembling. The old uncle is nowhere in sight, maybe outside smoking or just refusing to engage. I nod quietly, approach the door. Soft sobs drift from behind it. I knock gently. Rebecca. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. For a moment, all I hear is sniffling. Then a muffled reply. Go away. I lean my forehead against the door. I'll go if that's what you really want. But they tell me you're in trouble. There's a pause, then a shaky exhale. I'm sorry, she murmurs. Michael, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it would go this far. My throat tightens. I swallow. Rebecca. I'm opening the door. The father steps closer, face grim, but doesn't stop me. Maybe he sees no point in interfering now. The knob turns. She didn't lock it. Inside, she sits on the tiled floor, knees drawn to her chest, hair disheveled, eyes red from weeping. She looks up at me with an expression of abject misery. Why did you come back? She whispers, voice raw. I lean against the doorway, arms folded. Because your sister said you were in a state, and I'm not the type of man who can just ignore that. Rebecca blinks, tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't deserve that kindness. I say nothing. My face feels like stone. She tries to stand, wobbles. I instinctively reach out to steady her, then let go almost immediately. The brief contact burns with awkward familiarity. She exhales shakily, staring at the floor. I was so stupid, she begins. I know it sounds shallow, but I got caught up in the excitement. He made me feel. Her voice chokes. Alive, I guess. She avoids my eyes, shame coursing through her expression. At some point, I wanted to stop, but I kept lying to myself, saying it was a phase, that no one would get hurt. Then the pregnancy happened, and I realized I was in too deep. She covers her face with both hands. I never wanted to lose you, Michael. I don't know what I was thinking. I remain still, arms folded. My voice is quieter than a whisper. You betrayed me. You carried another man's child, and let me believe for even a moment that it could be mine. That isn't a mistake. It's not an accident. It's a choice you kept making. She sobs, nodding. I know, she rasps. I hate myself for it. I sense her father behind me, but he doesn't intrude. Is there something you want from me now? I ask her, an edge to my tone. You want forgiveness. She looks up, tears streaming. But no words come. I press on, voice trembling. Or do you just want someone to hold your hand so you can feel less guilty? She shakes her head vigorously. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't. I'm scared, Michael. I'm scared of what I've done, what's happening inside me, and what's going to happen now. My parents are furious. My sister is devastated, and Alex, I don't even know if he wants this baby. I've burned every bridge. I just wanted to see you, because, I don't know. I'm selfish, and part of me needed you to see that I'm not some monster. I'm just broken. I stand there, struggling with a dozen emotions. Finally, I speak, voice subdued. You're right about one thing. You're broken. But I can't fix that. You made sure of that when you lied to my face. You see now that this is bigger than you and me. You hurt everyone around you. You want me to stand here and reassure you that everything will be okay. That's not my role anymore. My throat goes tight. And for a moment, I can't speak. Then I manage. I came because I didn't want to hear later that you did something drastic. But once I leave here, that's it. Understand? She nods slowly, tears still falling. Yes, she breathes. She seems to crumble, sinking back to the floor, hugging her knees. I'm so sorry, she repeats, like a mantra. I step out of the bathroom, shutting the door behind me. The father stands there, scowling. His eyes flick between me and the closed door. After a moment, he clears his throat. Thank you, he mutters, grudgingly. The mother tries to say something, but I can't bear to look at her. My sister-in-law is sobbing quietly in the corner of the hallway. I walk past them, back into the living room. The old uncle stands by the window, arms folded, gaze distant. He doesn't speak, just watches me. He's always been the silent judge in the family. Today, I see no malice in his eyes, just a grim acceptance. Without a word, I open the front door and walk out into the drizzle. No one follows. The door clicks shut behind me, echoing in the damp air. I realize my entire body is trembling. My hands shake as I unlock the car. I slide into the driver's seat, feeling the adrenaline fade, and a wave of pure exhaustion flood through me. The father, mother, sister, they can pick up the pieces. It's not my responsibility anymore. She made her choices. Now she has to live with them. Part of me is relieved that she seems truly remorseful, because at least it means she's not completely devoid of conscience. But does that absolve her? No. Does it lessen my pain? Not really. Sometimes damage is irreparable. I turn the key in the ignition and let the engine rumble to life. The windshield wipers swish back and forth, clearing the cold drizzle. My phone, resting on the passenger seat, remains silent this time. I guess there's nothing left to say. All the illusions are gone. As I pull away, I glance once in the rearview mirror at the house we called home. The closed curtains, the figure of the old uncle on the porch lighting a cigarette. That chapter is over. My mind drifts to the day I proposed to her in that quaint restaurant, the look of genuine joy on her face. It feels like a different universe, a memory belonging to another person. The sky remains gray, the drizzle persistent, a faint reflection of my own mood. I drive away, not certain of my destination, but certain that I won't be turning back. Sometimes cold is the only emotion left, and maybe that's all right. I grip the wheel, forcing myself to breathe. The pain is there, but it's dulled, hollow. I can't promise I won't break down tomorrow or the next day. But right now, I'm on autopilot. In my head, I hear my own parting words, the ones I left her with last night. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed everyone who believed you. It still rings true. And so I keep driving through the drizzle, through the remnants of a broken storm, carrying a cold emptiness in my chest. The road is open, unspooling in front of me. And that's all I have. A forward path, no promises of where it leads. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it has to be. Because once trust is shattered, once illusions die, all that's left is to move on, to figure out the aftermath. and to find a way to live with the ghosts. That's my final verdict. Let her talk to the emptiness. Let her realize how permanent that silence can be. I won't be there to fill it. The man I was before is gone. And the man I am now is too cold to care. I have the rest of my life to pick up the pieces, but I'll do it alone if I must. Because in the end, that's all she left me, myself. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only piece that matters.